Hi everyone, welcome back to Kate's Food Fiesta. Today I'm going to share with you a little recipe of smoked salmon blinis with horseradish and dill. Here we have our ingredients. On this side we have our blini ingredients. So we've got a cup of self-raising flour, an egg, 3/4 of a cup of milk, about a tablespoon of butter which will be melted, and a little bit of salt. So I'm not making a traditional blini, which is a Russian dish and usually made with buckwheat flour. I don't have buckwheat flour, so I'm making these more in the style of a classic Australian pikelet, but more savoury than sweet. So that's why there's not going to be any sugar in it, and we put a little bit of salt in there. Then we have our toppings. So we have smoked salmon, obviously, and then we make a little sort of creamy mix with the dill, some sour cream, a little bit of lemon juice, and some horseradish cream. Never actually truly seen horseradish in the shops. I think it's a little hard to find, but I do find this horseradish cream works really well. With the dill, I'm also going to be just chopping it up and putting a little bit in with the blinis themselves because it gives a nice little colour pop. All right, so now we're going to start to mix things up. So what I've got here is I'm going to sift the flour. So really important to sift the flour, it'll stop it from being clumpy. I just wanted to point out, look at this awesome little contraption. So this is my mum's old sifter. I love this thing. The number of birthday cakes and whatnot that have been made from this, you have no idea. So I just love it. So as soon as I saw it in the kitchen today, I'm like, I'm using that. Anyway, so I literally just want to sift the flour. It's got this nice little rotation piece in it. I've looked for one similar, to buy one similar these days, and I just can't find one, but I thought it'll be a good thing to use to show you guys. And then we're just going to add some salt. So I don't use my big chunky rock salt in this. You do need a finer grain of salt in this because otherwise you just have big chunks of salt when you try and cook the pikelets. Okay, now we're going to make the little wet mix, which is the milk, which I've already popped into a jug. And we're just going to crack an egg. Careful you don't drop any shell in there. The wrong way. And then we've got our melted butter. So I've been a bit old school and done this on the stove, but microwave is a-okay. So we pop that in there. We literally just need to whisk it up now. So it's all blended. And now we just pour this into our flour mix. And you've got to make sure that you're mixing it fairly quickly to blend it all in so it doesn't go clumpy. So you might want to just leave a little bit of it out just in case the measurements aren't quite right. And then you can add a little bit more in later. So I'm just using a fairly big wooden spoon here. I find that that's quite a good utensil, I guess, to use it, but you want it to be nice and smooth, this mix, so you need to get it in. To use some elbow grease. Now I do find holding the bowl is quite often the best way to do this. It gives you a bit more control, I guess. Okay, so now we've got this, it's nice and smooth, and you can see that sort of consistency, so it's runny but still thick. So there's a couple of little lumps in there. That's not really going to make too much difference. So basically now we need to get a hot fry pan. We're going to use a nice big electric fry pan for this. And I'm just going to sort of grease it up, and then we're going to be doing little pikelets in that. Now it's time to cook the pikelets or blinis. So I put a little bit of dill in there now so you can see, hopefully you can see in there. It's nice and smooth with a little bit of colour pop with that greenery. So what we basically do is I've got this little knife here and I've just sort of cut a chunk of butter. I've got mine is in a non-stick pan, so I need to grease it. You will need to feel out the sort of pan that you use. You can just use a pan on the stove. So I've literally just sort of got a chunk of butter and stabbed it with a knife, and I'm just greasing up the tray. And then I go and start putting my blinis in. Now, I like to use a soup spoon because it's a nice size and it means that everything will be about a uniform shape and size. So you just sort of scoop it in there and then pop it in. Now these don't take particularly long to cook. By the time I've finished pouring these out, I'm only going to do 6 in this tray right now. They'll be about ready to flip over. Step 1 is greasing the hot pan. The butter will sizzle. Step 2 is dolloping your blinis into the pan, but making sure they are spaced out enough so you have room to flip them. Step 3 is waiting for the small bubbles to form and the batter looks set, not wet. And step 4 is flipping over and cooking the other side until it browns. Okay, now it's time to put our blinis together. So I've got the sour cream, the horseradish, and a little bit of dill to mix into that creamy base. Now, I find dill, people seem to really like it, really don't like it. The aniseed taste in it is a little bit controversial, we'll say. You don't need to put this in here. You don't need to use any dill in this if you don't like it. I never used to like dill myself, and I found just in small amounts, it's a really complementary flavour to things. So I'm going to pop it in this, but you don't have to. So I've literally got maybe 2-3 tablespoons of sour cream in here. I'm going to pop a couple of good dollops of this horseradish cream because I really like horseradish flavour. But again, you can do that to your own taste. And I'm just going to mix that in, literally stirring it around. But that's all it is. And then I'm going to add that dill in there. So it's finely chopped dill. I've left a few sprigs off, so I'll decorate some of the blinis with it also. Again, that threefold dill might be a bit much for you in the blinis themselves and in the cream and then as a garnish. But like I said, that's up to you to figure out what works for you and what you like. So I'm just mixing the cream around. There's not a lot of dill in there. And now, yum, smells so good. We've got it. So literally putting them together is as simple as, so I'm going to take my blini, do a dollop of the cream, and sort of smear it on, maybe a bit more generous than that. Smear it on there. And then you take a little piece of your salmon. Now you can do a nice little twisty thing if you like to make it look a bit fancier. I'm not too fancy. I just like it to taste good. And then a little bit of dill on there just as a little bit of garnish. That's pretty small, but anyway. Maybe a slightly bigger piece. There we go. And there we have our yummy blini. So here we have our blinis. They're all done up and looking pretty and delicious. Obviously I made more actual pancakes than that, but I'm actually going to freeze them. So very freezable, and you can just bring them out and just freshen them up in the oven for a few minutes, just to sort of freshen them up once you take them out of the freezer. But these are going to be super yummy. I would love to get some feedback from people if anyone has ideas about other toppings perhaps that they've used or other ways of making them. Always open to new ideas. Would love to get some feedback from people, but thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this recipe, and I'll see you for the next one.